Today I am chatting with Kristin Oldach, owner of KraeO in Chicago. Hi, Kristin.
Hi, how are you, Stephanie?
Welcome. Thank you for coming onto my show. I am
Yeah.
really happy to say that we have met in person at the H&H America show this past spring. You had a booth there to showcase your luxurious and beautiful hand-dyed yarn.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm going to do a quick shout out to the two of my friends because there were three of us in your booth, and another Kristin from Woolly Petals, and another Stephanie, which when I was like preparing for this, I'm like, oh my gosh, we had two Kristins and two Stephanies in the booth.
Cute. So cute. I love it.
That's
hilarious.
Yeah, we loved your booth, and I was very happy to see that I wasn't the only one having a hard time deciding on which yarn to choose, because you had some up for sale. And of course you were ordered to like take names and orders as well.
For sure. Yeah, I always bring stuff for people to walk away with, people want to like take stuff off the floor and bring it home with them.
Yeah, it's nice because then they can really kind of get the true,
for sure,
feel and look of how great your yarn is. So let's start by describing your business and what you do and sell, and then we'll rewind. Okay?
Awesome. So I'm a yarn dyer. So I guess we call ourselves indie yarn dyers. So I'm a one-woman show, and I dye yarn and I sell it to knitwear designers and just like hobby knitters.
Oh, cool. Knitwear designers. Yeah. All right.
And crocheters and weavers and, the whole gamut. Any fiber enthusiast.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So now we're going to rewind back to how this all started. So when did you learn to knit? Because I know you do knit, and then, to hand dyeing yarn.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. I started knitting and I started with crochet. I started crocheting when I was in grad school, which was a gazillion years ago. I guess I would say like 2007, I think it was. And I went to school for painting. So I'm like a painter by trade. I went to art school. And so I started like knitting and crocheting as like kind of just like I needed another outlet. And then when I graduated, my partner at the time and I were going to have a baby, which was a total shock and surprise. And so it was right in like the June or July of leaving school that I found out that I was going to have a baby. And so we kind of made the decision that I would stay home instead of going out to find a job, because childcare is so expensive. Yeah. And so I was like, if I go get a job right now out of school, because it was also like right after the recession. And so nobody was hiring. I mean, it was such a nightmare. So I was like, I'm going to be working for just the money to put my kid into daycare. So I decided to stay home. And that got me knitting and crocheting even more. And then like at the time, like Etsy was like really popping off and was the big kind of platform. And so I started an Etsy shop and I started selling handmade like winter accessories that I crocheted, and it kind of like did really well and it kind of took off. And so for the next 5 or 6 years, I was hand making all of these like cowls and hats and gloves and selling them to boutiques and having my own shows and doing all that kind of stuff. And so I needed, I'm the kind of person, I always need like an outlet. I need something of my own to do to like escape whatever job I have. And so I was starting to get, I was starting to get really worn out. I was a one-woman show back then too. I probably made like 100,000 pom-pom hats. And I just never wanted to look at another pom-pom hat.
Right.
So I got, I was like, I'm going to try and dye some yarn just like for funsies. And I got some dye and I got some yarn and I dyed some up and I loved it. And it was so fun. And it was like the perfect like segue for me because I, as a painter, I'm obsessed. I love color. And, as a knitter and a crocheter, I love fiber. And it was just like a marriage, made in heaven. And that was kind of it. Like I very soon after that, I didn't think I was going to make it my job, but I very soon after that was like, I cannot make another bulky cowl. Like I just can't do it. I was so burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And people were asking about the yarn. And, so I was selling yarn on Instagram, just like one of a kind one offs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hillary over at Nina Chicago, the yarn shop here in Chicago, my LYS, asked me if I would do a project for her and dye up a bunch of bulky yarn for a class that she was giving. And I said yes. And that was kind of like it. I was off and running. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been doing it ever since. So I think it's been 7 years now.
Oh, wow. That's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
And really that kind of set you up unknowingly for pandemic business.
100%.
Right?
Yes. Yes. The pandemic was like, what a horrible time for everybody, but really what an amazing time for people who were sitting at home alone in their house knitting. Like business was, woof. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I started knitting in the pandemic.
Really?
Yes. I always wanted to learn and never knew anyone who did. One of my friends from Norway, I used to work with her, said she would, but I mean, like then she had a kid and it's just life, and so finally during the pandemic, I just like YouTubed and I'm like, I'm learning this.
Yes. That's how I learned too. YouTube, we could learn how to build a car on YouTube.
Right?
YouTube is so amazing. It's incredible.
It is. It really
Nobody
is.
needs school anymore.
Oh my gosh.
So funny. Yeah, that's so great.
Yep. And okay, that explains because I have the yarn that I bought from your booth, and so this is the dried flowers.
Yep.
Whoa. Yeah. And just the colors in here are very painterly. I was just really enthralled with how they I've seen a lot of hand dyed yarn and they are all very beautiful in their own right.
Right.
But this yarn just really spoke to me, just because of the way that the colors, you utilize bright colors too. There's some really bright ones.
Yeah.
And then with neutrals, which I love to do myself. Like I do that even with my interior decorating business and interior design and like everything, quilt making and all that kind of stuff. I love setting a neutral base and then like setting it off with colors like this. And
same.
Yours does that really well.
Thanks. Well, thank you for saying that because that's exactly what I'm going for. I love like an interesting or like complicated neutral color that has kind of some spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also like adore neons. So I try to do stuff that you can play around with like interchangeably, like all of the neons that I have, you can use in some way with most of the neutrals that I have, just for like little tiny pops, here and there.
Because this is sort of a neutral, but it's still a color.
Right. Yep.
And you would think it's a solid, but there are very nice, like lights and darks throughout this tone, this color. But then you had like this could go really beautifully with like a lime green that you had there.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Really beautiful.
That's what I'm trying for.
Very nice.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah.
So
that's great.
So these are the three that I chose, kind
Love.
of in the fingering. So I'm still I keep these out.
Yeah. Right. I have so much yarn that I just use as like inspiration. I'm just like, what am I going to make with this one day? I'll know, but I'm keeping it around. Mm-hmm.
It's nice.
For sure.
Yeah, I love being inspired by color and stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
So, all right. So then the other thing I was wondering, so I'm pulling this one back out. Yeah. Do you experiment with new color combinations to see how they're going to blend and repeat, and stuff that people would make?
Yeah. Especially for like a variegated colorway. I don't, some people love it. My personal preference, I don't love color pooling. So when you're knitting with a particular color, a variegated colorway, and you're knitting and the color, maybe like the pops of color that are in the yarn, they start to pool together as you knit. So instead of having like a variegated garment, you kind of have this area like swaths of color that kind of move throughout the piece. And I don't necessarily love that. There's definitely like great uses for it.
Sure.
But it's not my favorite. And so every time I dye a new variegated colorway, like I will knit a sample, just a swatch to see how the color is moving throughout it. You know, and because I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So every time I always make a swatch of like everything that I've dyed that's a new colorway. Like, and there are plenty of times I've dyed colors that I was like, this is it. I love it. And then I'll swatch it up and I'm like, no, I don't. You know, because sometimes it just doesn't work, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is,
and
because
yeah, go ahead.
You're making this color combination sort of blind until you see how it's going to, you know, knit up. Yeah.
Yep. And like, I'm sure any person who loves indie dyed yarn will tell you, like, there's been at least one time where they bought a skein that looked beautiful in the skein, but did not knit up great. You know, I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So like, then you learn how to like, I as a dyer, like I have learned how to read a skein of yarn because what it does look like on the skein is not necessarily what it'll translate to in a garment.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So you kind of learn how to read the skein of yarn a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And even sometimes looking for shopping for skeins of yarn that are variegated, if they don't put up like what it looks like, a swatch looks like knitted, it's very, I'm very hesitant to kind of go for it, especially if it's like a really, you know, more high end one that making that investment.
And especially if it's like wild too. Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's a wild color. Like I'm very attracted to wild stuff. But sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh, I think that's gonna color pool. Like I don't think I can do it, you know? But some people love color pooling. You know, I've seen some really, really cool color pooling pieces. I just don't do it well, I think is what it comes down to. Some people do it great. I do not. Yeah. Yeah,
I hear what you're saying there. Okay. So the other thing that I really like about your product is your naming system. It's really fun.
Oh, thanks.
So
Thank you.
The ones that I got were, and I think this is why, because I don't really get a lot of fingering yarns because it is so tiny, and I know I could do socks with this, or I mean you can really make anything, but it's going to take a long time because it's so like thin. And delicate, but Twisted Sister. So I'm like, I have to have some Twisted Sister.
Yeah, I love it. We had a lot of fun, like naming. We have a lot of fun naming the colorways, naming the line. Like it was a blast. My husband is, he does a lot of like brand identity stuff. So he's really like the king of all of that. But he's also kind of like, we've kind of, you know, built this little like system of naming stuff. I don't know if I could even like explain what it is, but I feel like I've adopted his brain power kind of in that way. Nice. So now I feel like I've turned into him, and I don't need him to name my yarn anymore.
Good.
Like I figured out how to do it.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
And that's nice that you had that in-house.
Yes, it is.
Marketing guru.
But I will say it's very much like the cobbler's children have no shoes. You know what I mean? Like it's like
I do.
I have to fight for that time.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
I hear you.
It's hard.
So, okay. So so for instance, and it makes perfect sense too, because it's not some like just like fancy word that you have like, how does this relate to DK weight? And yours really does. Yeah. Because you've got like your Aran weight is called Big Brother. Yeah. You got like the super bulky, it's called Big Papa. Yeah. And then you have like a mama one too.
Yeah, Mama Bear.
Mama
Yeah.
Bear, which is DK.
Yeah.
So it makes like, and Little Sister is the one ply. So it makes perfect
Yep.
sense as to how to remember the weight of the yarn that
Right.
these are named, which I
Yep.
also love.
Yep.
And the other thing I love is the fiber content.
Yeah.
So several of
Yay.
your blends are merino and mulberry silk blends, which
Yes.
makes
Yes.
for a super soft, silky feel.
Yeah.
And talk about how you decided on yarn substrates for your products.
Yeah, it was a long process. It was a lot of like dyeing and knitting and swatching and all of that kind of stuff. And I realized, which I did not know before I started, you know, down this journey, I was just like merino, like whatever, like I'll knit with whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I really found that like anything with silk in it, even just the smallest bit of silk, makes for an incredibly like durable, strong garment while
Mm-hmm.
also giving it like amazing drape and beautiful sheen. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, we have to cook the yarn, we have to heat the yarn in order to get the dye to bind to the fiber.
Mm-hmm.
And I cook like low and slow. So I cook my yarn for like 3 hours on very low heat. And you know, if I tried with nylon, a lot of people like to use nylon their with their wool, especially for socks and sweaters and anything that, you know, needs to hold up over time.
Mm-hmm.
But the nylon would like shrink almost a little bit
Mm-hmm.
as I would cook it. And so like that was just a like no go, can't use it. So the silk was like the perfect kind of replacement for the nylon. And it turned like I have just learned that like I love silk more than I love nylon.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the drape is completely different. I feel like it holds up better over the years. It makes, I've had a lot of people be like, well, but I want to make socks. You know, I'm not making a sweater. I want to make socks. And I'm like, this is the best yarn for making socks. Like this merino silk blend is awesome. And then I don't use, most of my yarn, with the exception, I think of three bases, I use non-superwash. And that's because like you said about the dried flowers, I really like a painterly like skein.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do speckle, and when you speckle a non-superwash merino, the fiber takes it differently than a superwash.
Okay.
So it like bleeds a little bit and gets,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like kind of moves around the fiber more.
Mm.
For a superwash, if you speckle yarn on it, it strikes right away, and then you get those really strong, like little dots
Oh,
of
I see.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that was just my personal preference, and so
Okay.
yeah. So that's a lot of the reasons why I use
It's kind
those.
of like how watercolor paint bleeds, yet, but
Exactly.
if you go with more like of a gouache, it's a
Exactly.
lot of pigment and color
Yeah,
right there.
that's exactly right. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the silk. Just so I know about it from the interior design fabric
Mm-hmm.
way, but for it must kind of relate the same as to yarn because basically fabrics are made from yarns.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm guess tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's kind of a similar thing. And you're right. Like most people think that silk is so delicate, but it's a very strong fiber.
So strong. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
then
incredible.
also the mulberry. So um, another thing too is just that I mean, as just the same with cottons, they're not all the same
Right.
and there's long staples and short, and so mulberry is kind of like the high end of
Yeah.
the silk world.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It really
So
just has like the most amazing drape. Like it's
mm-hmm,
just, yeah, it's interesting. The silk is interesting. I admittedly don't know. I am not an expert on the different kinds of silk.
mm-hmm.
But I do know there are differences, and I'm just like, I mean, there's so many different kinds of everything. Like it's
It
hard to decide
is,
what to put into
yeah.
anything. Yeah.
But I like it's good that you say you label it because that it is mulberry because people
Mm.
who do know, will recognize that as like, you know, the best type of
Right,
silk, because
right.
it
Yeah,
is. I mean,
yeah,
what could, in order to be called mulberry silk, they have to have the silk from the worms that only feed on mulberry like leaves on those mulberry
right.
trees,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they produce a certain, you know,
Yep.
type
Yeah,
of
it's so
silk
fascinating. It's
in
so that whole
their,
process.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's so
it's really
incredible.
cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so that's great. Yeah, I do love the combinations, the fiber combinations,
Yeah, thanks.
and I was going to ask you about the superwash because um it's great to have, I think, because people look at that, especially if like they're making, I don't know, baby blankets or something that are going to get washed a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
But what, I mean, what are the I guess pros to a super wash versus like just a regular merino? Because like wool comes from, you know, an animal that
Hmm.
is out in the rain. You know what I mean? So like it's not like wool can't get wet or be washed, right? So what makes
Correct.
super wash so much better?
Yeah, you know, superwash is it's an intro. I don't even know exactly like when they started doing superwash. Like I couldn't tell you the year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if it was 50 or 100 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it really, in my experience, the things that like my preference is that when I use the superwash, so it's great for like baby blankets, it's great for you, but you do have to I mean, I also would never like throw my superwash sweater in the washing machine. I think like the benefit that we're supposed to think of it is that you can just take this and throw it in the washing machine with the rest of your
Okay.
clothes,
All
you
right.
know, and like I don't think I would be able to do that, although I
Mm-hmm.
have on accident. um but also like I don't like superwash very much because when I knit, when I as I'm blocking, it tends to grow bigger. The
Okay.
superwash does,
Yeah.
as opposed to the non-superwash, which like you know when you're swatching, like it should be the same. Like
Mm.
your sweater should come out the same as your swatch, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so you know it's a you know and also there's a whole bunch of conversation around you know how bad it is for the planet, like the superwash process.
Mm.
Because I think you're basically like shooting it with, I don't know exactly what they're washing it with.
I don't either.
I can't remember the name of the
I'm still
chemical that
so
they
newish
use.
to knitting, but I know that it has to be sort of treated,
It does,
um,
yeah.
and it must be treated to make the fiber, I guess, hold up to um, the abrasion of washing. I guess
Yeah,
I
so
don't
that's
know.
the other thing is that it won't felt. So a lot of times, like
Mm-hmm.
if you knit a sweater out of non-superwash merino, which is something like I actually find this as a bonus, some people
Mm-hmm.
don't, but when you block it, the if it's non-superwash, the fibers will start to felt a little bit together.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you wash it, as long as if you're agitating it like crazy,
Mm-hmm.
it will start to felt. And so
Mm.
a non-superwash will not felt.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's a good
I'm sorry, I
difference.
think I said it the wrong way. A superwash will felt. No, will not felt.
Well, not felt being
Will
agitated.
not felt. Yeah. So the
Right.
superwash will not felt being agitated, but a non-superwash will.
Right. Okay.
But I think that that's kind of a benefit when you're knitting and you make a sweater.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's for the fibers to kind of like to felt a little bit after
Mm-hmm.
you've washed it makes it more like structurally sound. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
the fibers are kind of like weaving together
exactly.
and creating
Yes.
like a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is technically true or not, but like in my brain this is how it works. Like I imagine that when you you know with the superwash, like that maybe that's why it grows so much when you get it wet. So
Mm-hmm.
you really have to take that into account when you're knitting. If you're knitting with superwash, like okay, when I get this wet, when I block it, you know, it's going to grow a little bit. And you kind of have to
Mm-hmm.
like add that into your math,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Very
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
Okay.
I've made sweaters with superwash that have been like hanging off of me. Such a bummer. It was so funny.
Oh, that is
But
too
it definitely has its
funny.
place, like it is. I
Hmm.
mean, I knit with it. I still knit with it all the time. You know, everything
Yeah,
has its
yeah.
purpose. Yeah.
I think there's, some good points to why you would use it,
Hmm.
and how it would act better for the purpose that you want it to. And that pretty much answers my question, because I just really wasn't that sure, but it makes much more sense to me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
great. Okay, so now this is
Yeah.
kind of fun. Okay, so um, I have some questions on ideas that you could give the listeners on what to make with your different yarns. And
Yeah.
okay, so my first one is a weird one, because um, it's these mini skeins. So
Yep.
at the creator content, you actually, this was in our little, what do
Yeah,
you
in
call
your
it?
bag.
Swag bag. Yeah,
Yeah, great.
I loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
so, but it's a mini skein. So, what
Yep.
are some ideas? Because I mean, the mini skeins are kind of growing in popularity, and I see sort of sometimes there's sets of them. And so,
Yeah.
what do you make with these?
So I have right now, I just built a kit, not just, I think around like for last year, I built this kit. It's called the Elven Shawl by Florence Sperling.
Hmm.
And it is like an intarsia shawl that has, it's got a base color, and then it has all these different shapes all over it in different colors. And so this kit that I built is
Oh,
actually like 2 full skeins for the main color, and then it's 9 mini skeins for all of the different colors in the shawl. And that is like, if you're a collector of minis,
uh-huh.
that shawl is like perfect. If you have, I mean, and you don't have to have 9 of them. You can absolutely do it with like, 4 or 5 different colors too. Um, but that's a great, great garment for having mini skeins.
Oh,
And then
good.
I knit a lot of socks, and so I love having minis around for like a cute like toe, heel, cuff kind of
Oh,
contrast,
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love
Good
that. Like that,
idea.
yeah, a mini
Okay.
skein with a full skein, you're good to go. You got a pair of socks.
Oh, you could do the heel and the toe, right?
Yep, totally.
Oh, see,
Yeah,
good
it's great.
ideas.
Yep.
Very
Yeah,
good.
and 20 grams is plenty for heel toe and cuff.
Heel, toe, and cuff.
Yeah.
Okay, 20 grams. Nice.
Yeah.
Which, and that's a good idea though, with that elven shawl, because now it
Hmm.
kind of reminds me of patchwork piecing with
For sure.
smaller, pieces of fabric. So now you
Yeah.
could probably incorporate little mini skeins like wherever you
Oh,
wanted, you know.
exactly. Like I feel like Intarsia is kind of having a moment right now. I know Amy from La Bien Ami made a bandana that I can't remember the name of it right now, but she just wrote a pattern a while ago of this Intarsia bandana that is so awesome. I want to make it so badly. But
Mm.
it's just like blocks, it's color blocking
Mm-hmm.
essentially,
Yeah.
which is so cute. I love it. So yeah,
Oh,
like you have an extra mini skein lying around, like throw it in there.
very good. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. And then just so, if anybody doesn't know what intarsia is, it's a type of
Hmm.
color,
It's a type of color work. Yeah. So
right,
there's like
color work.
Fair Isle, like those beautiful sweaters you see with the like gorgeous yoke is usually Fair Isle.
Mm-hmm.
Intarsia is when you have like if you think of it in a square, like you have your main color and then maybe inside of that swatch you have one spot like a square or a circle or any kind of shape of a different color yarn that is typically intarsia. So you're kind of like instead of Fair Isle where you're doing
Switching
like color
yarns.
switching yarns
Yeah.
every few rows. You're like knitting, 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 switch a color, knit for a few rounds,
Yeah.
switch a color, continue knitting. It's like one piece,
Right.
one shape of color. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's so hard. I don't know why. I can knit Fair Isle all day, but Intarsia is
Yeah.
like, oh
I
man,
haven't even tried intarsia
it's
yet, but
I
I've
don't
been
know why
hearing
it's so
it
hard. Yeah, yeah,
tossed around
yeah,
here. So,
yeah. It's really fun. but for me, it's really difficult. And so every time I see, I love it so much though. So every time I see it, I'm like, no, I have to make that. It's so funny.
But a
Oh man,
bandana is small enough to where you could kind of get
exactly.
like a little finish win from a more
Exactly. Yes.
complicated type of a stitch. So, like
100%. Yes.
I'm in the middle right now of I thought it was because they labeled the pattern like easy beginner.
Right.
And yeah,
Famous
well, it
last
may
words.
be easy, but it's taking forever. It is
Yeah.
I wanted it for summer, and now summer's done.
Next
And I
summer, next
started
summer.
it back in spring, but
Yep.
and it's just a wrap. It's just like a
Yeah.
long rectangle, but to
Yep.
make those lacy little
Yes.
holes
Oh, it's
throughout,
lace. Yes.
you've got
I'm with you.
you just repeat 4 rows, but and
Mm-hmm.
so the 3 rows are fine. You can go whatever speed,
Yep.
but then it's that one row that does all
Right.
of the little holes.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you have to pull the yarn through and then wrap it around, and then from the back you got to like knit from the back 2 together, and it's just like
Yes.
it takes forever.
Yes, I know. Lace is I love lace so much, but it is my absolute enemy. Like it just is.
I had
I'm
no
terrible
idea
at
that
it.
that's my first like attempt at doing lace, and I had no
Yeah.
idea, but you basically like increase it double, and then you like, pearl it back down to
Right. Right.
regular or
I know.
something like that. Well, no,
I know.
that's what the knit 2 together is. So you're purling
Right.
it up and then you're knitting 2 back down to decrease it. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. And
It's
some
crazy.
people just like whip that stuff out.
I
Like
know.
they'll whip out a fingering weight lace shawl in, no time. And I see them walking around shows and I'm just like, God bless you. How, like, teach me your ways. Like for me, I'm just like, that would take me 3 years. It'll take me 3 years to do that. It's so
I'm
hard.
still working on it because I love the yarn that I got for it. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like how it's looking. Well, and the
Yep.
other thing too is it hides mistakes really well too, because there's a million mistakes in this. But
Awesome.
I've
Yep.
only had to rip out like maybe a couple spots that I really needed to, but all the other mistakes I just let them blend in to all
For
the
sure.
holes.
Yes. Yes. I'm a very vanilla knitter. Like I'm definitely, after working all day, I go up and I like sit on the couch and I'll put something on Netflix or something. And I want to be able to like watch TV and knit. So like a lot of my knitting projects are like super, basic vanilla, lots of just stock net. But so when I get those more complicated patterns and I get a little, feisty and I'm like, I want to do that. I have to, I mean, I am like nose to the grindstone, like nobody talk to me. I need to be alone. I'm counting.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Netflix and knit. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, let's talk about, okay. So I asked about the mini skeins. So fingering is also, really good for socks. Is there anything else it's good for?
I mean, if you're adventurous and you want to make a sweater, you know what I mean? Like, I love the way that the Twisted Sister look like the drape on the garments that you can make with Twisted Sister is fantastic. And then like, I've seen a lot of people make like cute little like fingerless mittens that are super adorable,
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
This is the idea. I was thinking of ideas of what I would make with those.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yes.
Isn't that so cute? Because it's got the little scallop.
Cute.
Here I go again with something that's probably going to be crazy to make, but
you got to do it.
It's mostly stockinette. It's just like the edges are.
Oh yeah, for sure. You got that. No problem.
The fingerless, right? And then
they're
just
like
a hat.
Yeah, I love them. I love fingerless mittens so much. They're so cute.
Although this pattern I think calls for a little bit of a thicker. So I was looking and I love, you have this colorway out there, autumnal.
Yep.
With the deep, like, I love it so much. It's in the Aran weight, right? So it's the big brother.
Yep. But you can get it across. I think I probably haven't posted it on other bases on the website yet, but I have a lot of stores that order that color in different weights.
Ooh,
It's a great color. Yeah, I love it too.
I love it. It's just like whereas I had a hard time picking these out at the booth, when I saw
Yeah.
this with all the other, I'm like, that is a color I have to have. I
Yeah,
have
right,
to,
right.
have to.
And it's so perfect
So
at this time of year. It's like really, I mean, that is like fall, like spectacular
yeah,
fall color. Yeah.
of course, I'm gonna put the link to your website, but I want everybody to look at this autumnal because it's just so perfectly autumn. You look at it and it's got all of those colors of the leaves, like the jewel tones, which I
Yeah.
love jewel tones.
Me
And
too.
it's got like the, burgundies into the plums to the like these goldeny russets. Oh, it's just so gorgeous. I love it.
Oh, thanks. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you like it. I love it
So
too.
that's what I was thinking, actually, more so for this than,
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cute.
right?
And perfect timing.
I
You got to
have to
throw on
get
a
it.
hat and gloves right in the
Yep.
fall.
And I don't
Hmm.
have to make fingers, so these are just open.
Yes. That's why I love them also.
It's awesome. Knitting's got to be
Yep.
fun too, right?
It
You can't
does.
like just
Yes.
be,
It's not
dragged down by
torture.
details,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We
So,
cannot
okay,
torture ourselves.
fingering, and of course, DK and worsted, your mama bear.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
probably the most versatile, right? Like, I feel like everybody
Yeah,
knits with DK.
for sure. DK is fantastic. It makes
Mhm.
an amazing sweater. You can also make socks with DK. I love my DK. It's like 45% non-superwash merino, 45% non-superwash alpaca, and then it's got that little bit of mulberry silk in it to kind of hold that, to keep that structure and get that beautiful drape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've knitted with alpaca. Oh, I love it. It's so
oh,
soft,
it's
but
so soft.
it is like very loosey goosey. So it's nice that you
Mm-hmm.
have that more structured silk to
Yeah,
kind of like, make it
yeah.
behave.
I mean, the silk, like exactly, the silk makes it sound like it's a fancier yarn, but
Hmm.
like how I feel about it is that like I feel like the silk allows you to not be so precious with
Yes.
your knits. Like I know I said in the beginning that like I would never put a handmade sweater in the wash. That being said, I have mistakenly done it a ton of times,
Hmm.
and like they've all come out fine.
Hmm.
So I mean, you don't want to do it all the time, obviously, but
Right. Right.
the silk just seems to be like a workhorse of a fiber,
Hmm.
and I love
Yeah.
it. So you
Yeah.
don't have to be so precious, with your
Precious.
alpacas,
Right.
and because alpaca is like, whoo, that's luxury, man,
Right.
you know, for sure. I love it.
Okay. So, and then the big brother is the kind of like the Aran weight, which is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So we're getting bigger. So
Yep.
in the
Yep.
weight, which is also bigger
Right.
in like the diameter or whatever of the
Yes.
yarn.
Yes, for
And
sure.
Aran is like considered like a chunky, right?
Yeah,
Regular chunky or
so
kind
I
of in
would say,
between.
yeah, so there's these like I heard somebody call them like fake weights once, and I thought it was so funny. Like Sport and Aaron, they were like, those are fake weights that like were just made up. Like, and I thought it was so cute. And I'm like, you know what? It totally is. Like Sport is just like the tiniest bit bigger than fingering, and Aaron
Hmm.
is just like the tiniest bit bigger than worsted. My Aaron is heavy. It's I would treat it as like a light chunky more than I would a heavy worsted, because it is one
Mm.
of those like in between weights. It's a made
Yeah.
up weight.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's like a light bulky. It's
Hmm.
great for hats.
Hmm.
A girlfriend of mine knit me a hoodie. I'm sorry, she crocheted it. She crocheted me a hoodie.
Wow.
It's like an Adidas hoodie. It is
Cool.
absolutely the cutest thing ever, but it is heavy. So if
Mm.
you're gonna make like a garment with it, and just expect it to be pretty heavy, but it's
Hmm.
great for hats. I mean, it makes the cutest hats. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And a quick knit too, because it's big
quick.
yarn and big
Yes,
needles. So
yes,
you'll
which is
finish that in no
awesome.
time. I know, I love
Yep,
it.
yep. Me too. Me too. I love a
And
quick job.
yeah, and super chunky
Hmm.
is the big papa. And when
Big
I look at
Papa.
your
Yep.
photos, to me, your photos, I'm like, wow, that almost looks like roving because it's,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a single ply.
single ply. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very
For sure.
pretty.
Yeah, it's great.
So
I
the
love
super
it.
chunky, same thing. You could do like hats
Totally.
and cowls and stuff
Cowls,
like
yeah.
that,
All
or
that said, like if you want,
blankets.
blankets are great.
Hmm.
You know, if you want to make a cute cowl in 30 minutes, like super chunky is your best friend, you know.
Hmm.
You can pump them out. Yeah.
Yeah, great quick little gifts
Yeah.
to make. So
Yeah.
those
So
are,
fun.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to some tools. So
Yeah.
regarding the knitting needles,
Yep.
when we were at the show and you had mentioned these really cool, they're kind of like a hybridy sort of way to do knitting in the round, which
Yes.
they're from Skacel and they're called FlexiFlips.
Yep. Yep. I love the FlexiFlips. I don't know. I feel like people are either the magic loop knitters or they're
Mm-hmm.
DPNs. And I hate both of them. You know, so when you get to like that really small circumference of knitting,
Yes. Yeah.
where like there are, you know, I have a set of like 9 inch circular needles, but my hands are, I can't, my hands cramp up so badly.
Mm-hmm.
The Flexi Flip is like the perfect in between of a magic loop and DPNs. So you get three of them. There's three of them, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of fold. They have like a little tiny space in the middle of them. So imagine a DPN, and like right in the middle is a wire, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're flexible, and so
Mm-hmm.
they kind of do the job that the magic loop does, while also kind of being DPNs. They're not so like rigid as the
Mm-hmm.
DPNs are, which kill me. I'm
I have
just,
yet to try those though.
they're so awesome.
But I definitely could not get the magic loop thing and
Yeah.
didn't like it, but and then it
Yep.
took me a long time to get the DPN thing down, but now I like DPNs because
Right. Right.
I can do
Yep.
it.
Yep.
But
For sure.
sometimes I do get that little laddering, which I'm like,
I know.
oh,
I know.
why?
I know. Curses. Like, I can't take it. I know. It's so hard. It's so hard. But it's like whichever one you learned first, or like whichever one you
Hmm.
got comfortable with first is,
Yeah.
you know, usually the one you stick with.
But like this is like another option out there though, which is kind of
Yes.
cool
Yeah. And if you're a
to
DPN knitter,
try.
you'll catch on to this right away.
Oh,
You
good.
know, like,
Okay.
because the principle is still the same,
Hmm.
you know, only
Yeah.
it's easier because, you know,
We're switching from one
exactly.
set to the next, but they're
Correct.
connected with the little
Yep.
cable, which is a good idea. I mean, who thinks
Yeah.
of these? This is
I
awesome.
know. It's amazing. Brilliant minds.
Right? And then there's this other thing out there that I have not tried, but square needles. What's the,
Okay.
purpose of
Yes.
that?
I have no idea. I
I don't
don't
either.
know. My husband knits every once in a while.
Okay.
And he, you know, he's like most dudes, they like the gear. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they
Yeah.
get into a hobby and they're like, "Ooh, I like the gear." And so, whenever I take him to my LYS, he's always looking at needles, and he bought some square needles because he's like, "Oh, this is different. I'm gonna try this." He has not tried them yet. But
That's
I
too
haven't
funny.
either. Yeah,
I
I'm
haven't
not
either.
sure. I'm not
No.
sure what it's for. You know,
Okay.
I don't know.
Me
I don't know.
neither. But they're out
Yeah,
there.
they are,
They're
man.
out there. Scasso, they've got them
Yep.
all. So,
Yeah.
all right. Is there
Yeah.
any other thing out there that you think is a cool knitting tool that you like?
So there's God, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but it is like a thing that you put on your finger, and it has two loops on it, and it's for color work. So like you
Oh.
can have one color going through like one of the loops and the other color going through the other loop, and you get to just like kind of grab it when you need it instead of holding. I hold one in each hand, you
Yeah,
know,
me
but
too.
I'm a picker. Like I do continental typically.
Me too.
So my throwing is not great, you know, so whatever color is in my right hand is never as like
Oh, they're both
consistent
held
as
in
my
the
left
same
hand.
hand.
Yes, but
Oh,
you have
yeah.
it's like this little gadget that you put on your finger. And you just kind of
Oh.
like when you're ready to do the other color, you kind of just
Hmm.
loop it and you don't have to hold it. It is
Oh,
the coolest thing
interesting.
ever. I wish I could remember
Yeah.
the name of it.
All right.
I don't think it is this, but I want to say it's like a Portuguese something. But I think
Okay.
I think that might be a whole different thing. I think I'm mixing up my cool knitting tools.
Well, I'll, Google will tell me what it is.
Google will absolutely tell you what it is. Yep.
Google knows
Yep.
everything.
Yeah. You just put in like ring knitting
Yeah.
loop.
Ring, loop, knitting,
It's so funny.
finger ring. I don't know. Finger ring. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. It's
Got
like
it.
a finger
Cool.
ring. Yeah. Yeah. It's
That sounds
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I kind of like cool tools too. So I
Yep.
like that one ring. Speaking of rings, it's the ring counter thing.
Yes. Those
So
are
you
great.
wear it. I love those. I
I
love those
know
a
they're
lot.
amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
do too. I do too.
So, all right, good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you've got some events coming up.
Yeah.
We're talking in like where are we? But just about mid. Oh, it's Friday the 13th.
It is Friday the 13th. Oh my gosh.
We gotta
Love
watch something
it.
scary tonight.
Perfect. Yep.
Actually, my husband is so into horror that it's like
Is
Friday the
he?
13th almost every weekend here.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
I don't
That's so
love the
cute.
gory horror, but it's so
Yeah.
isn't it bizarre how
Yeah.
like is like someone like your husband can like rub off onto you of like what
Totally.
their habits and how they do things or like what they're watching, because I would
Yep.
never watched
Yep.
most like a ton of the stuff he
Totally.
watches, and now I'm like, oh, this one I think you would like, and I'm like, it doesn't look too gory, so I think I might like it too.
I love that. That's so funny. Yeah, that happened to me with sci-fi. I used to like not be a sci-fi person, but my husband's a total sci-fi person. Now I'm totally a sci-fi person.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
just like, I love it. Let's do
That's
it.
another one too. I would never touch sci-fi at all, and I
Yeah.
do it a little bit more, but he's definitely much more into the horror thing. But
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I would never have like gone the sci-fi route,
Right.
and now I'm like
Yeah,
so
man.
excited when the next Alien comes out.
Oh my God. I'm so
Right?
excited for when it. Oh,
Me
I'm so excited. My
too.
husband already saw it. He
Cannot
said it was
wait.
awesome.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh,
He said it was as good as Aliens, like number 2. And I was like, whoa, because that's the best one.
That's the
And
best
he's
one.
like, it's as good. Yeah. So, I mean, he's amping it up. So I hope I'm not disappointed, but I can't wait to see it.
I can't either. Yeah, because I went back and started to like watch the first one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so old.
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. It is so old.
Yeah.
So hysterical. Yep.
Oh my gosh. This is a tangent, but I also have to say I love Predator versus Alien.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's so
and
good.
I always root for the Predator. They're both bad, but I think the Predator is more cool.
Yeah, the Predator is awesome. I mean, I remember it being on when I was a kid because I had an older brother, and just kind of like peeking into the room to see what was on. And I was like, whoa, what is that thing? Like, whoa.
Right.
It was so cool.
It was really cool. It
was so funny.
Yep. All right. So, okay. So Friday the 13th, but this is going to be posted towards the end of the month. So the first event will already have taken place, but I want to mention it anyway, because I want to, give that a shout out.
Yeah, so I'll be doing a trunk show on the 21st at Nina, Chicago, which is a yarn shop here in the city. It's on Chicago Avenue in Noble Square. It's one of my favorite yarn shops ever. The people there are lovely, and Hillary is the owner, and she was, one of my first customers ever. So we've just, we've kind of created this really special relationship. So,
oh, that's awesome. So she sells your yarn.
She does. Yeah. She does. Yeah. They're great over there.
I've heard of her shop. I've never been there. I've got to go there because it's just like right down,
They have a lot of fabric too. Like they do both.
Oh,
so they have a lot of sewing stuff, a lot of fabric. They've really like expanded, their line when they moved into the new location a while ago.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, they have a lot of seamstress. What is sewists?
I don't know what we're quilters,
called.
Whatever.
Yeah, they have a lot of that stuff going on there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is funny because I think that I saw that shop on someone else's YouTube channel. There was this younger girl who she travels and then she'll visit wherever she's at,
Sure.
some yarn shops. And
Yep.
she was in Chicago, and that was like the first one. And I'm pretty sure this is it. I don't remember her name of her channel, but
right.
I'm almost certain it was Hillary, the owner.
Yeah.
And she was so nice to her. And then she showed, like, you know, of course, you know, she allowed her to film, and it was just like,
that sounds
really
like Hillary. She's the sweetest.
Nice experience. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's great. Yeah. I love them. Everybody's so great over there, and they're just so knowledgeable. Like, they just know their stuff.
Which is always nice to have.
It's always great. Totally. It's fantastic. Yep.
That's awesome. And then what's coming up next month is Indie Untangled.
Rhinebeck. Yeah, at Rhinebeck. So there's like these little annex shows that happen on the Friday before Rhinebeck starts. So one of those shows is Indie Untangled, and I'll be doing that. It's in Saugerties, I believe, is the town it's in. Okay. You know, it's right around, if you're going to be going to Rhinebeck, like, you'll probably be going to some of these shows. So yeah, I'll be there that Friday. I can't remember the date. I feel like it's the 19th.
18th.
18th. It'll be,
well,
yep, you're right.
Well, Rhinebeck starts the 18th. I don't know what day that is, though.
That's a Friday.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Friday the 18th will be, that sounds right. We'll be, we'll be the Indie Untangled show.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. So the 18th is going to be the Untangled show.
Yeah. So if you're going to be there, swing by and say hello. It is such a blast. I mean, I didn't know that you could get so many, you know, fiber people in one area, but if you can, Rhinebeck's the place for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
because
so great.
Are there any shows like that in the Midwest here? I can't think of any.
There's a sheep and wool festival in Wisconsin.
Okay.
But I've never been, to be honest. I don't know why I haven't been yet.
Sheep and wool?
Yeah, okay. I don't know what time of year it is. I can't remember if it's like a fall or spring thing. For some reason, I'm thinking it's a springtime thing.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. But I need to go to that. I don't think it's nearly as big as Rhinebeck. I think Rhinebeck is like one of the biggest. That, and like the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival is also really big.
Right. Yeah.
But like, you know, they have other ones in other towns, you know, especially like,
there's one in Vermont,
there's a lot
too.
of farmland. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
I just had to go check it out here. So Sheep and Wool Festival, Wisconsin. They must have already, I think they just had it then. September.
Oh, it is in the fall or summer?
September 6 to 8 is next year. So I don't know.
Great. Okay, so
I don't know what this
fall.
year was. I must have just had it last week.
Yep, totally. Okay. For sure. Yep.
All right.
Every year I'm like, I'm going to the Wisconsin one. And then it always gets away from me.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. That's not too far away from us. So
yeah, right. I know.
It's nice because you and I are both in the same area.
Yeah, for sure. I know. We'll have to go next year.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That'll be a blast.
And maybe I'll see you again if you do a booth again at H&H.
Yeah, I'll be
next
there
year too.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I'll be there for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention or talk about, like your fall colors? Or you know what? I also want to talk about this really quickly too, because I forgot. Is that because you're hand dyeing this yarn, so you make the yarn to order, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I typically have stock on my website. I put dye to order because, you know, there's always a possibility that I don't have it in stock and I have to dye it to order, just so people like know that it's about a 5 to 7 day lead time.
And that's not even that long. So
no, it's not. It's not. So because I usually do keep like a pretty good back stock. But there's always that chance. So I say dye to order. I don't want to overcommit. You know what I mean? So, and then I usually get it out earlier than that, and people are happy to get their yarn sooner.
Yep. That's one of the things I learned when I was in sale, is to not overpromise.
Yes, exactly.
And then exceed expectations when you have it early.
Yep.
Much happier.
I know.
You got to set their expectations.
It's the best. I know it's like a model that people use, but I still fall for it all the time when I'm expecting something in like 2 weeks and it comes a week early and I'm like, ooh, love
Yeah,
this seller,
I know. It's always
every
nice. Yeah,
time.
me too. Yep.
Yep.
And so then are there colors that you have established that are always available, or
So
do they change out?
yeah, so I'm a very like fly by the seat of my pants dyer. Like I will I know a lot of dyers come out with like collections and they're like, okay, right now here's my collection. We're putting it for pre-sale. I am not like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't work well that way.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I have a new color that I love, like I will kind of sneak it onto the website like a little Easter egg and be like,
Cool.
okay, this is here. And after about a week or two, I'll put on social media that I've added a couple new colors.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like I'm easy breezy, and I have a really hard time like retiring colors.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of colorways.
Nice.
There are a few that I've had to like, okay, these aren't great. They might be my favorites, but they're not everybody's favorites. And I gotta take them off. I'm like, these are just not selling. But yeah,
What? So what would be like? Okay, wait. First, okay, sorry. Autumnal, for instance.
yes,
Is
yes.
that like something you just kind of put on there when the time is seasonally right for it, or is it
No,
kind
I
of
leave it up. I leave it up
available?
all
You
year.
do?
So, yeah, autumnal,
How
I
come I never saw that
dyed.
color before? Okay.
Yeah, autumnal, I dyed for Indie Untangled. It was like my show color for Indie Untangled. I think it was two
Oh,
years ago
uh-huh.
that I did it, and so it was just a color that I brought with me. Sold it at Indie Untangled for
Uh-huh.
the show, and then I don't think you could only get it at the show. And
Mm-hmm.
then I didn't put it up on the site, I think, for like another few months before I made it available to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I do things like that
Okay.
sometimes.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, but when it went up, it was like everybody's favorite. Everybody wants
Yeah.
autumnal. Yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
great.
say that's a
Yeah,
really good one. And I'm pretty sure
yeah,
like maybe this dried flowers might be a favorite too.
yes, yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
People, especially this time of year, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
great.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
that's the good thing of like knowing how your website works and how we
yes,
can order,
yep,
and also that you're a wholesaler, so there might be
yep,
your yarn might be at someone's local
yeah.
yarn shop
For
too. And if
sure.
it's
Yeah.
not, then ask your
Ask.
local yarn shop
Yeah. Have them
to
call me.
call Kristin at
Yep.
KraeO.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, and yeah, it's great. So I cannot wait to start knitting up some stuff here
Yeah,
with
I
your
can't wait to see
yarns.
it. That's so
Um,
exciting.
yep. And
Awesome.
let's see. I got myself all discombobulated with that because I'm like, I can't believe I didn't have this on my notes. That's one of the most important things.
That's hysterical. I love it. That's so great.
All right, so we've got your information. We know that you sell
Awesome.
on your website. I'll have the links for that. A link for the Rhinebeck Indie Untangled, and a link to Nina Chicago as well. And you'll let me know
Fantastic.
if there's anything else you want me
Yeah,
to link to,
for
like probably your
sure.
Instagram too, of
Totally.
course.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
You got it.
right.
It's just KraeO.
At
It's my
KraeO.
name across the
Yes.
board. Yeah.
KraeO. And it's
Correct.
capital K. Well, not on Instagram, but just your name.
Right.
Your company
Yeah.
name is capital KraE and then a capital O, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the
I
one.
saw that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Awesome.
cool. All
Yeah.
right. Thank
Thanks.
you so much, Kristin. It was just so
Thanks,
nice
Stephanie.
to be able to talk to you about your shop and kind of like get more of this one-on-one time, but then also like broadcast this out to all of my listeners
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there.
It's been a blast. Thank you for
So
asking me.
it was fun. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No problem.